Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks. Thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. We have Steve Wildman Monrotis in the house. It has been a month of Sundays since he's been with us. He's been pulling overtime like a fiend, and we're glad to have you back, brother.
Oh, it's good to be back. I was afraid y'all were chalking me up as nothing more than a cryptid or left me for dead or something.
You were almost a cryptid at this point.
Yep.
Bobby, how you doing, brother? You feeling any better?
Yeah, I'm feeling better. Finally. Doctors. Don't even get me started.
Always a pain in the butt when you got to deal with anything, especially if you need the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And the worst is the waiting. I mean, I really hate getting stuck waiting for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But Steve can attest to that. It's because the nursing staff are overworked and by and large underpaid. I mean, they're expected to do a million things with a waiting list out the door on half staff.
That's about it. I mean, it's getting to the point where our urgent care is trying to do half the work of the ER and 3/4 of the work of primary care, and we don't have the staff for either one.
Exactly. Well, hopefully it'll get better. I mean, times they are a changing, as they say.
Well, I learned my lesson. I ain't going to doctor's care no more.
Well, can't say that I blame you. What everybody's been the buzz going around Facebook, and my messenger's been blowing up with people sending me links.
Mine too.
Broke down the video that we reviewed the other day, and I don't want to sound unperturbed, shall we say, or unimpressed, but he came to a lot of the same conclusions we did.
Yeah.
He never
2 weeks before he
wrote this, but we were saying there were no cables, there were no ropes. Those vehicle sounds were distant. There was definitely something in the trees. He never out and out says what he thinks it is, but Thinker Thunker's breakdown of that video is pretty damn good, and it backed up a lot of what we were already saying.
Yeah. I mean, there's one or two things I didn't agree with what he said, but for the most part, I 100% wholeheartedly agree with what he said it wasn't. Because what he said it wasn't was the same things that you and I and Naoma said that it wasn't almost 2 weeks before that. So I'm pretty impressed and happy with mine and your initial breakdown, and then Naoma's go through the video, and then the very next week the three of us get on and break it down. And I think based on what he did, I think we did a spot on job. I mean, it's just I'll be tooting our own horn, but I think we did a dang good job of it.
That's real good, Clark.
Really nice, Clark. Really nice.
Really nice. I got the line wrong. Damn it.
And I still say that, to me, why we're seeing such a blurry image is he's shining a light straight up there. I'm thinking we're seeing the light refracting off those clear hair threads. I think we're seeing a great example of adaptive camouflage.
Because if you look at when he's talking about that, and he's talking about when he's calling it tree rot, tree rot's throwing its branch out and all this, which is let's be honest, that was hilarious how he was playing on people saying, oh, it was tree rot. And he was like, look, there's tree rot's shoulder, there's tree rot's arm, there's tree rot. That was funny. But when its hand came out to throw the stick and it was white, that's when the flashlight was shining on it. But as the flashlight kind of moved, as the hand went back up in the tree, the hand turned back to around the color of the foliage around it. So like I told DA earlier when we were talking, I said, I think that just proves what we were talking about. So I think we did a good job.
I think Thinker Thunker did a really good job of breaking it down, more so than we were capable of. But even breaking it down as far as he did, it really didn't invalidate anything we were saying.
No. But look at what the stuff he's got and the resources that he has got available versus what we just broke it. Me and you broke it down with just looking at it, and then Naoma went through and
pulling it and slowing it down.
yeah. So I think between the three of us, I think we did a really good job considering the limited resources we had to go through the thing like he had versus what he had.
Not bad for a couple of amateurs.
That's right.
That's right. And I'm still going to stand by what we said. I really do believe it was a Bigfoot in that tree.
Mm-hmm.
Several. It's a great example of adaptive camouflage, and I think Thinker adequately showed that there was no hoaxery going with cables and ropes and people pulling stuff out of the tree. Like you're saying, there's Tree Rot's shoulder, there's Tree Rot's hand throwing a branch. He was able to isolate stuff like that we didn't even catch, but we still caught a lot of similar stuff, and we were saying the same things.
Well, we based our reasoning that there was no ropes and cables on the way the trees fell. They fell in a natural manner, whereas if they'd been pulled, if a tree's going to fall, it's going to fall like this. If it was being pulled, it would kind of move this way before it didn't just fell straight.
He pointed out when leaned out before it broke off, and it never did that. It just broke.
Yep. And
and who's going to pull a tree branch down on themselves directly down? Nobody's going to do that.
Not only that, it was in an area around an apartment complex. If somebody was trying to hoax a Bigfoot video by tearing up trees in an apartment complex, they'd probably get their ass evicted and charges filed.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with that 3D relief, like we were talking about backstage before, that to me that's just like the smoking gun to, okay, if there was ropes, it was, and he went through the entire 3-minute video with that 3D relief, and you can see all those hard edges of the branches and the deck and the rails on the deck and everything. And if there'd been ropes or cables attached to those trees, they would have stuck out like a sore thumb, to quote what he said. So, I just think that's the smoking gun. There was nothing staged about with ropes or cables, at least.
May not completely put it to rest, but at least in my mind, it confirms what we suspected.
Yeah, and I stand by my statement when we first started. I think this is up there as far as evidential video goes with Patterson-Gimlin. To me, it's almost like one of the gold standard videos.
And it is a damn good video. Steve, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, you should.
I need to check. Is that Thinker Thunker was the channel?
Well, you can go back and watch ours.
Yeah, you can go back and watch
yours.
Yeah, give us the views on him.
Thinker Thunker does a pretty good video, really breaking it down farther than we could have. What Richie Evans says, is the show on? Are we still waiting? The show is on. As far as I can tell, we're broadcasting.
Yeah, we're broadcasting. I can actually. I'm watching the live feed on my iPad.
I've got it up on
my phone right here. We're on.
We are live, sir.
Miss Naomi says, tell Richie to refresh his screen. YouTube does that sometimes. Yeah, Richie, hit refresh.
Well, somebody might need to put it in the chat then, if he can't
he said, okay, thanks. He commented.
I was about to say, if he didn't think we were live, he might not see us and be able to hear that.
That's a fact. Well, tonight, I know our plan was to discuss sightings in and around the area where we're going to be planning on going here in the very short order. So, you guys want to start with that? I'm going to be, by and large, using mapsquatch.com, but we can also check some of the other sightings other databases if you want.
MapSquatch.
MapSquatch is a pretty good one. Since we're going to be, a lot along Table Rock Lake, I'm going to start out with sighting near Table Rock Lake. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
This is in Stone County, Missouri. It's an unusual shadow seen through window near Branson. Large footprints found the next morning. It's considered a class B encounter, but we're kind of getting away from that. We've kind of talked about that before on the show. We are no longer going to be using the class A, class B, class C system that some of the other groups use, because I think that puts less emphasis on some of the more credible sightings, like that video we were just talking about. You really can't call it a class A because you don't directly see the creature, but you certainly see its effects. Although I would still consider that a top tier sighting, and especially the video. So we're classifying the videos as visual sighting, auditory or evidence collected, and I think that's really the best way to do it. So this one, I would consider this one evidence collected and class B. And they said shadow scene, so technically they saw something. Said it happened on a Saturday night when they were 11, back in around 1981. So the moon was full, had my curtains closed. The creature walked up to my window. It was very tall, was covered with hair. It breathed heavily, and its head was kind of pointed on top. I also noticed that it almost seemed like it had no neck. It stood in front of my window for 2 to 3 minutes like it was listening and trying to look in. I knew it was no joke because we had no neighbors at the time. I was very scared of it. Eventually, it left the window and walked around the side of the house. The next day, I told my sister what I had seen that night, and we discovered footprints around the house. They measured about 20 inches long. Never told my parents because I didn't think they'd believe me. We also measured the window and discovered the creature had to be at least 8.5 feet tall. I know that whatever I saw scared me so badly I wouldn't go outside at night until I was 15. It also rained on that Sunday and washed away the footprints, but we followed them into the woods. Well, might have been a little nuts for a couple kids to follow it into the woods, but I consider that a pretty good encounter. I mean, they found the tracks. 20-inch tracks is no small one, and they've got a point on their window that they know what it measured to. So I would say 8.5 foot's probably an accurate measurement if they knew exactly where it was standing.
Yeah, that's. And so many people don't think to do stuff like that either. Going out and measuring the window and, getting a good, if something's looking through the window, yeah. Like something was looking through my bedroom window, that doesn't necessarily mean it's tall because my bedroom window is only, 6 feet off the ground. But some of these houses have windows that are, 8-9 feet off the ground, depending on how the land lays. So that's smart to think about doing that because it may look, like a normal window from the inside and you're looking at it, but you go outside and if that thing's looking eye level of the middle of the window and middle of the window is 10 feet off the ground, suddenly it gets a lot more serious.
It's like the windows right here on the front of my house. I mean, they're just at window height inside, but you go outside with the foundation and everything, I could look in the window, but I'm looking like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think they, especially for young kids to follow the tracks, that's pretty gutsy.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of kids that would think to track something like that into the woods.
I would have gone the other direction, even now, probably.
You hung in there, Steve.
Hey.
Not that you really wanted to, but you did.
Hey, I figured, if I was going to go down, at least the story would be good when I got to the play gates. I mean, how many? Steve? Seriously, I mean, how many people have the the honor of winning a Darwin Award, being taken up by a cryptid?
Yeah, no kidding. I was going to say something. I completely forgot what it was. Sorry, I was answering a message. Hey, just W. Leonard Athlas just sponsored the channel. That's awesome. Thanks, man.
Oh, sweet.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for that.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. I hate it when I completely lose track of thought.
All the things I lost in life, I miss my mind the most.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh
Yep.
well, I'll either think of it or won't. Northwest Native Tracker, the recording device being either a phone or a 16 MP cam. Again, it depends on what you get on camera. I mean, they were asking me about getting a video analyzed. It depends on what's in the camera on camera. I mean, I've seen some really good footage shot on a cell phone, and I've seen some really crappy footage shot on really high-end camera equipment. It just depends on what you got and who wants to do the analyzing. If it's I'll just be completely honest. If it's more red circle stuff where somebody's got to put 37 red circles on the image just to get you to try to see something, I don't think I know anybody that would waste their time analyzing that. And well, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I'm not even going to waste my time with that kind of bullshitography, because that's what it is. If you've got to put 35 red circles on a picture to get somebody to claim they see a Bigfoot, you're wasting my time.
Well, and if you can make a stable image, it helps too. It's not as easy to analyze if you're, running full balls at something, with your cell phone.
Pareidolia seems to be the kryptonite of a lot of these Facebook groups and certain individuals, because they just can't seem to grasp that if you stare at something long enough, your brain's going to try to find a pattern.
Yep.
If it's not jumping out at you in the first couple seconds, it's probably not there.
Well, like we said before, there's plenty of people that we think are here, and I don't mean here as in this chat, I mean in this community, that are here just for no other reason other than to make us look worse than we already do look.
And I think some of that is just people wanting 15 minutes of fame, and I think some of it's deliberate. I think some people are just doing it to cause dissent in the community. And God knows there's enough of that without it.
Yep.
At the risk of putting my tinfoil hat on here, there may be folks that are doing that just as a plant. I mean, it's military intelligence 101. Discredit.
If you can get close enough to get film, send it to just about any of the big channels. Send it to MK Davis. Send it to Thinker Thunker. Post it somewhere where it can be seen. But far too many times I've had people send me videos. There's a couple I could point out in particular, but if I described it in detail, everybody would know exactly who I was talking about. But somebody sent me a video of what they claimed was a Bigfoot on their property, and they were even talking to it in the video, and there wasn't a damned thing there. And I can tell you for absolute certainty, there wasn't a damned thing there. And I watched the video, and I even played with the contrast. I did everything I could, and where they were saying it was nothing. And I'm not just saying, no trees, or I'm not just saying no Bigfoot or animals. There were not even trees. I mean, I was looking at a clear area, and there was nothing there. Maybe I'm too narrow-minded to see. I don't know, but I tell you, there was nothing in that video. Julia Pullman subscribed to the channel. That's awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry, folks. If there's nothing in the video, no amount of squinting or rolling your eyes or standing on your head or looking at it with your head tilted sideways is going to put something there. And
and I think it's good to say that there's times that we have sent videos and pictures and things to each other that we were like, I really don't see what you're talking about. So we don't just, we're not just talking about other people's videos. I've sent stuff to DA and said, hey, do you see this? He's like, nope, don't see it. And he sent me stuff. You see that right there? Nope, don't see it. And if you don't, you don't. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not smacking your face.
Like when we were in Combs Ferry, Wyatt was there with us. Lieutenant Jenkins, Lieutenant Estrella were both there with us. Noah was with us. We all saw shadows moving between trees, but we caught none of that on camera. So we didn't present it as evidence because you couldn't see anything on the camera. It was just dark.
And the thing, me and Noah saw something on the psionics, but we couldn't figure out how to get it to record. So we said we saw something, which we did, but we don't have any visual proof of it. Other than our eyes.
And I'm not going to put anything out I don't think is legit.
Yeah.
Just the way I'm built, the way I do things, and if I think it's BS, then I'm not going to put it out there.
And that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. We're not sitting here trying to bag on anybody else, because we'll bag on ourselves before we bag on anybody else.
Absolutely.
If it's like we said about when we was talking about this video that we were talking about first of the show, DA and I watched that thing for an entire week before we did a show on it, trying to break it down and trying to see, okay, could this have been faked? How could this have been faked? Looking for things that would, that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. We're not trying to prove or disprove anything. We're trying to authenticate. That was the right way to say that. Authenticate.
I like your version better. That's definitely a Robbieism. That's how stick. That's what we're going to use.
Sometimes you got to add a little extra something to it, Steve.
I like it.
Just to make it stick. You know what I mean? But we're not trying to prove or disprove anything. We're just trying to make sure that the stuff that we see, the stuff that we get, if we can say, yeah, this looks pretty real, then that's what we'll say. But if it looks like it's not, then we're going to say that too. And if that hurts somebody's feelings, sorry, not sorry, because we're not gonna get behind something that all of us don't see and agree with, because that's just like DA said, that's not how any of the four of us are made. We're not gonna, because it's not fair to y'all, because we have built our show on being as open and transparent as we possibly could. So that's just the way we're going to be.
Well, coming from the background we all have, your credibility is really all you've got. So if you present false evidence, that taints every future piece of evidence you could possibly present. Because even if it's legit, if you've got a reputation for presenting false evidence, your reputation's shot. That's why we say, whenever we present anything, this is what we saw, this is what we think it is, but you all form your own opinions on it.
And I will say, at least for myself, we haven't exactly built a reputation as being politically correct either. We're going to say say it as it is. Nobody's going to blow smoke up somebody's hole. It's going to be what we feel, what we see. An honest reaction.
And again, we'll be the first ones to say we are not experts. We don't claim to be, and we tell you to form opinions.
And it's like I say, I keep going back to this. When we had that skull, we did not have to come back on here after we did that entire show. Steve, you were on that show. After we did that entire show, and by the end of the show, we still didn't really have an idea what it was. But after the show, you found out what it was.
Doug Hychek, and he told me what it was.
We did not have to come back on here and say, hey, guys, we found out it was a dog. We could have just let it go.
Yeah.
But we come back and we said, look, we did a whole show on this. And, we even said, somebody said it was a dog. We looked up skulls. No, that can't be a dog.
And then we got like any of the skulls we could find.
Yeah. You got to have your integrity, man.
Yeah. Because it goes a long way. I mean, whenever we go out, and we are going out quite a bit this year, whenever we go out, we'll show you exactly what we find. Like when Noah and I went down to Joe Bald back in October and found those dismembered deer parts, we presented it as what it was. This is what it is. This is how it was done. This makes no sense that a poacher would do this because this is not normal. I showed those pictures to my buddy Wes, who's Navajo. He's like, no, this is not how anybody would disarticulate a deer. He said, look at these jagged pieces of bone here. He said, these were twisted and snapped off. He said, nobody I know would have done it that way because that's hard work. He said, we would have just taken a hatchet or a knife and cut it off. He said, no, whatever did this took a lot of strength, and I don't know what did it. So
Yeah.
We'll present it. We'll present what we find. And if you see something that we don't, cry out. Or if you don't see it at all, again, we're not gonna try to ram it down your throat. We're just gonna present what we find. And like in cases where we've shown pictures of footprints or we've showed other evidence, we present what we found. Now, if we get the smoking gun, get a full body as this thing moves between trees, we'll present that too. But we're not going to doctor any evidence to try to make it look like we've got more than we've got. We'll either find the evidence or we won't find it.
Yep. Hey, Cajun
Thank you,
dog.
Cajun.
Thanks.
Appreciate super chat, dude. Thank you, man. You guys ready for the next one?
Fella heathen.
I think
Yep.
so.
This is a memory of somebody seeing a creature from years before. It says, I was halfway between Marionville and Aurora. Steve, you know where that's at.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've both been out that way. Not recently, but we've been out that way a while ago. Driving east, some traffic. Saw something move at the edge of the tree line. It was off to my left, north of the road. Actually looked like it was climbing up a tree or coming down from a tree. I didn't know what I saw, but as soon as possible, I pulled over and turned around and went back, and it was gone. So I went home and drew a sketch of it and forgot about it. I didn't have internet back then. When the Bigfoot program started, I watched them, and that's when I knew what I had seen. Actually, it was difficult to draw. I couldn't get the head right, and it seemed not to have a neck. I think the head was kind of pointed, not round. I'm 70 years old now, and I've only started to tell a few people. They either say I'm lying or don't know what I saw, and they just laugh at me. I used to drive a truck for a living and have seen lots of wildlife. I've been in 48 states and lots of Canada. My son, he's seen them multiple times down on Table Rock Lake near Cape Fear. He hunts and fishes there a lot. And that, again, is right in that area where we're going to be. Cape Fear is not far from either Joe Bald or Blanc Road.
Mm-mm. Definitely in the hunting vicinity of anything we may have played around with.
Well, that Cape Fear area, like I said, ain't far from where we were, both in Joe Bald and in Blanc Road. And both of those places we found dismembered deer.
Yep.
So these sightings are kind of giving veracity to what not only other sightings we've collected in that area, but what we've experienced ourselves and filmed.
Yeah, and I think that we are pretty lucky because we found some of the stuff we found. But I mean, still, some of the stuff that other people have run across, just like the stuff this guy had happen in South Carolina. I mean, I would love to have some kind of encounter like that.
Marcus Antonius sponsored the channel. Thank you, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. But, I don't know if Steve agrees with this because he thought that was a pretty intense encounter we had last time anyway. He probably don't want to have anything more intense than what we had. But
hey, you put things together. There's stuff that could have gone better there on my end. That's okay.
Oh, Stevie.
Yeah, at least I got the bills paid off.
We had you back there, brother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you hadn't been hurt, we'd have stayed longer. But I think it would have been, well, considering how active they got after we passed the parts, the fish head and the deer leg in the tree, as active as things got then, it might have been a blessing in disguise that we had to leave when we did. Because I think if we'd have tried to complete the complete circuit and get back to where we originally put in at, I think we might have run into some trouble because they were starting to get really active and aggressive.
The pucker factor definitely was rising as things were continuing. They were either getting more bold or they were getting more pissed off, one of the two. I definitely got that feeling, and it probably didn't help. I wish I could have seen, I wish we could have manipulated where I was taken out of the equation. Was it because I was hurt? Was it something else?
I don't think so, because they were really still aggressive when it was just me, DA, and Noah left right there at the end. So if it'd just been because of you, I think they would have backed off at that point, because you were in the first boat.
Richard.
Yeah, they would have backed off when IX filled.
Well, I wish every time a group left that Richard would have done that with the spotlight to see how much eye shine was close to us, because we didn't hit that area with a spotlight until me, Robbie, and Noah were backing out. And once we were about 30 yards offshore, we lit that area up, and it was covered with eye shine.
Yeah.
Larry wants to know if you're healthy enough to go on the next outing, Steve.
Oh, yeah. I will say, at the recommendation of my doctor, I will wear that brace that I've got, because, I've got a natural weak point there now. But I'm in a lot better shape than I was then. I was telling you guys backstage before we started that, that was an eye-opening thing for me, for me to, basically break my leg getting off of a 30-inch boat deck. Told me that I got to do some health things. And I'm down 42 pounds since then. And so I'm a lot more lean and mean. And, I'm not going to let myself get hurt again.
And we don't want you to get hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
I mean, I've been called dumb as dog shit before, but I really don't want to become dog shit or Bigfoot shit or whatever. Insert critter here that wants to eat me.
Anything. Thank you, David. Thanks for sponsoring the channel, man.
Cajun Dog says Scooby Snack.
Yeah, true.
Here's another encounter story. This one's from closer to Branson. It's in the Henning Conservation Area near Branson, which is a wildlife conservation area. Ruth Henning Conservation Area, aka Henning Park Scenic Overlook, and this is pretty close to town. I mean, this is not a real wild area. It's wooded in this area, but there's a lot of houses around this area. Since I've told this story to numerous people over the last 16 years, and I've also been made fun of quite often. But though I've forgotten many things from my 20s, this picture's in my mind. This picture stays in my mind. Even the sounds of breaking twigs, everything from that night is still crystal clear. I have not questioned what we saw ever, and still hold true to the fact that what we saw was nothing other than what's called Bigfoot. It was August, and I believe of 1994, Ruth and Paul Henning Conservation Area outside Branson, Missouri, around 1 a.m. A friend of mine and I had just got off work, and we pulled over to what was then a scenic overlook. A trail at that time wound back and forth approximately 60-foot lengths as it progressed up the hill to an old fire tower. If I was there, I could show you exactly where we were, and I think I know where it's at and where it was, but I'll do my best to describe. We had gone up the path 2 turns when we heard a loud snapping sound in the quiet night. We both instantly froze and looked up. Between the 3rd and 4th path turn, we could see it. A huge, large, slightly slumped Bigfoot, long arms, silhouetted against the city lights and the open area behind it. We just stood there, shocked. The friend I was with after what seemed like 5 minutes frozen yelled, "Hey!" And then 1 foot from it, a second slightly shorter one stood up and turned to look right at us, and then they both ran off. The running was so significant because they ran on back legs but hunched over with long arms, and it was loud, snapping twigs and pushing their bodies right through small trees in the way. We waited a moment and then walked to the trail to where they had been standing. Using a close-by tree to estimate the height of the tallest, it had to be at least 7.5 feet tall if it wasn't slumped. We heard another snap in the woods and then ran full sprint to the fire tower at the top of the hill and stayed there the entire night. We didn't talk much about it. Still in shock, I think. I know right where that's at, too. That's out the end of Branson toward Shepherd of the Hills, Steve.
Oh, okay. I know exactly where you're talking now.
We go up the hill out of Branson. There's that turn off that goes to that overlook area. That's exactly it. That's right where they were.
Is it somewhere we can get to?
And I think we definitely will get there.
Sounds good.
So I hear a plan being formed. I found a sighting that I thought was rather interesting. Yeah, this is new from Map Squatch too. I was kind of perusing it. This was in Reynolds County, Missouri, near Annapolis, close to where I grew up, actually closer to where my wife grew up. It says, I was on my way home from town between 10:30 and 11 p.m. As I was coming around the gravel road, I received a message on my phone. As I opened my phone to check my messages, I saw a creature walking upright across the road. It stood about 6 to 6.5 feet tall. I quickly started backing out of my messages, trying to access the camera on my phone. At the time I first saw it, it was about 50 yards from it. By the time I came to a stop, I was within 25 to 30 yards from the creature. When I first saw it, the creature was in the middle of the road in the process of walking straight across the road. It wasn't in a hurry. It calmly walked across the road and stopped about 5 feet off the road, still in sight. I was able to take a picture of it before it walked off into the woods. For the moment I saw it, it never took its eyes off of me. I tried to switch my camera over to video, but it was too late. It was gone. I was fortunate enough to take the picture I got before it was gone. It's definitely a night I will never forget. It's interesting how many of these sightings, the critter clearly gives no Fs at all that you're there. You know, for something as secretive and whatnot as these things seem to be, the fact that it's just like, you know, F it, there's a dude, there's a car.
Well, I mean, when you're in that position in nature, you really, I mean, when you can bench press a grizzly bear, what are you really worried about?
Exactly.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Steve Madden said his youngest Killian wanted to say hi to us. So, hi, Killian.
Hey, Killian.
Oh, hey, Steve. And hey, Killian.
Steve Stepanek says in Kansas at Milford Lake, there's supposed to be a 10-foot tall Bigfoot. There's, people think that just because Kansas has a lot of crops and not a lot of hills and trees that there aren't Bigfoot sightings, but there still are, more than you might think.
You know, I don't think the average person quite has a bearing on how big 10 feet tall is. You know,
That's a
you
big
sent
animal.
us a thing not too long ago that showed like it was like an infographic, and it showed the gradients of height. You know, 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, 15 foot, whatever. 10 foot is effing big.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a
I
6
still
foot tall
have-
man, and I would come up to like the navel of a 10 foot tall humanoid. You know, that's
Well, I mean, just
ridiculous.
think about it. It would be bumping its head on the goal of an NBA basketball rim.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how tall it is.
It's like those pictures you see from like the filming of The Princess Bride or whatever, where you know, you see Carrie Elwes standing next to Andre the Giant, and you know, Carrie's a decent height dude. he
About average
looks like
height.
nothing.
Well,
Yeah.
look at the pictures. You know, the I don't know if you call them backstage on a movie, but the pictures of Andre the Giant and Wilt Chamberlain standing next to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh
Arnold's
yeah,
not
and Conan.
a tall dude, but
Arnold.
he looks like a child standing next to those two.
Yeah.
Because Andre played the in Conan the Destroyer. Andre played the whatever the name of that creature was, and then of course, Wilt Chamberlain was in that movie too. And there's still footage or still photos of him, and Andre's in the middle of them looking like this. Yeah, he's like what 6'2", I think, and that was fresh off his, you know, his last Olympia, so he was still pretty jacked, and he looked small compared to those two. So, and Wilt Chamberlain was what 7'2", I think.
I think so, something like that.
And Andre was 7'4", what he was billed at. I don't know if he was actually, but he was a big dude. And 10 foot's bigger than Andre the Giant and Wilt Chamberlain.
Oh yeah.
Considerably. I'm trying to see if I still have that info.
Well, I think about the tallest man in the Guinness Book of World Records at Waldo dude. He's like,
Oh, Robert Wadlow. Yeah.
yeah, he's only like 8 foot something, and I mean that's that you're still talking 2 feet past that.
Yeah.
And I've got a picture when we went for my buddy Kirby's bachelor party. 2 of our buddies, Nate and Jeremiah, are both 6'8", big dudes. And we went to Gatlinburg. You know, there's that statue of him where it sits down, but then it stands up to his full height. And there's a picture of them 2 standing next to it with his full. And they come up to like just barely right up under his arms.
Oh yeah, you don't think about it. I mean, just somebody like you said, 6'9", 6'10". You know, I've got a good friend who's 6'9", and he towers over me, and he's only quote unquote 6'9". You know.
Yeah, I think I've either accidentally deleted or lost that image because I'm not finding it in my files. Which kind of sucks because that's a great image.
I'm sure. I was gonna say, I'm sure we could find it somewhere. It just doesn't.
I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Just can't lay your hands on it now. Once it's on the internet, it's always on the internet.
Oh yeah.
So, Patty, according to WWE's website, Andre was billed at 7'4". He was probably a shade under that because they usually bill him a little bit taller than that. But WWE's official website says 7'4". So he was probably 7'2", 7'3", somewhere around in there.
One doc says I'm 6'3", 300-pound corrections officer. I forget how big I am until I see myself on next to a normal-sized person. I bring calm to a pod for some reason. Yeah, kind of like when I worked a pod with Shane Rogers. But then I've got my another buddy named Brian. They used to refer to us as the Vanilla Gorillas.
Yeah. Like when Rich 2 used to show up.
Yeah.
Rich. That's some of the stuff at work.
Steve, we're probably going to talk about that at some point. Maybe not tonight, though. You guys want to ready for another one?
Sure.
I recognize where this one's from as being very near to where certain characters in my books have a headquarters. This says Engineers Trail, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is at almost the south gate of Fort Leonard Wood. It's in Pulaski County.
Steve knows where that's at.
At the site of.
I'm a soldier stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Every morning we do PT, such as running. That morning we did a 3.8 mile run on the Engineer Trail, ran that trail. The Engineer Trail is a giant 3.8 mile track that has about 10 acres of land in the middle of the circle for land navigation courses, and toward the back of the track opens up into a giant forest that feeds into Misty Mountain and other sections of the post. That land behind the track is 100+ acres, I'd say. On the morning of 1 October 2014, around 0600, we, about 15 soldiers, started our run individually, so we were spread out, being some were faster than others. About midway through the track, we came across a barrier, a tree about 3 or 4 foot in diameter that looked to be healthy, not rotten, and in relatively good condition, was laid across the trail. That's kind of interesting. We haven't had any crazy windstorms that could have knocked it over, but at any rate, myself and other soldiers didn't think anything of it. As I continued on my run, I encountered another tree that was knocked over, but it looked as if someone had maybe some of the soldiers had drug it off the road. Same diameter as the other one, but almost as if someone didn't want us on the track. I continued on my run, and about 1.5 miles, I reached the back side of the track where it meets the woods that go toward the eastern side of the border of the post. That's when I started hearing a yell that sounded kind of like whoops. It must have been around 200 feet away. I immediately stopped running and started listening. That's when I heard around 5 different whoops. I say around 5 because each time I heard it, I had to change the position of my head, and each time I heard one. 3 of them were inside the circle of the track, and 2 to 4 were on the border of the track on the back side. Being that I was out there alone, I was in the lead of the pack of soldiers. I didn't want to encounter what I was hearing, so I started running to get away from the back side of the track and back toward the civilization side with as much quickness as I could muster. I know what I heard immediately being that I know what I heard, and immediately being that I Googled it, YouTube, and watched a lot of documentaries on Bigfoot. The thing was, when I got back to the start point, I didn't want to mention what I'd heard for fear I might be made fun of or something. So when the rest of the group caught up and finished, they immediately started talking about the sounds. A few of them even mentioned Bigfoot calls with seriousness. Most people, when they talk about Bigfoot, you always get the guys who are sarcastic and snobby. Well, this group of soldiers, we all agreed. There was a family of them out there talking to each other out on that track. On top of that, I have encountered this odor before when me and my wife will go on trail rides on the four-wheeler, a musky odor. The entire run, all I could describe the odor as was musky sewage smell the entire route. We have ran that route several times, and normally all you smell are the trees and the weeds around it. This time was completely odorless, almost to a gagging, this time was completely odorless, almost in a gagging kind of way. I wouldn't think twice about saying me and the other soldiers I went with that day encountered a family of Sasquatches. And that's right near well, it's kind of the eastern side, but still the southern end of Fort Leonard Wood, that where the Engineers Trail is.
Sound like he could almost become Fort Lost in the Woods.
That's the reason we call it Fort Lost in the Woods.
Yeah, that's some woolly stuff there. Have there been stories of like people in basic training disappearing out there and stuff like that?
There's been stories of people out on hikes seeing them. I know of a couple of disappearances on Leonard Wood, but I don't think they were anything to do with cryptids. I think one of them was a drug deal that went bad, and another one was a guy that was just killed.
Is that the Mark Twain that it butts up to?
Yeah, it is right in the middle of the Mark Twain. A big chunk of Leonard Wood is Mark Twain.
But that just lends to what that we've talked about how many of these military bases butt up to these national forests and places like that.
Well, there's an advantage to putting a military base, in the heart of nowhere. Well, when the habitat of a creature that doesn't want to be seen or encountered sets up home, it tends to pick the same places.
Yeah.
And that's assuming you're not talking about military or talking about government land that was, previously annexed by, the government or the military for whatever reason, i.e. national parks and stuff like that.
What if certain government facilities are built in areas where they know these things are to deter people from trying to sneak in?
Well, when I went down to Cape Canaveral, it's located in the middle of basically of a national preserve. It's the largest concentration of alligators in the United States. And, the guy that was our tour guide says, if you want to get off the bus, the alligators won't mind. You just won't be getting back on. And, it's a way to keep somebody from, messing with the spaceport.
Yeah.
Way to thin the herd. Or
somebody tries to sneak in and they don't come out.
As we in the South call it, culling the herd.
Culling, yep.
AVI May says Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington is huge. Yeah, that's a big base. Lots of sightings up there as well. Roxanne says, did they find that last soldier that disappeared? Yeah, the last one was a female specialist. They found her body in a dumpster.
Yeah, she turned up. That was a foul play situation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bad deal, but there was no cryptids involved, just bad people.
Yeah, that was more a case of shitheads than cryptids.
Yeah. Steve Stepanek says, has anyone heard of Bigfoot and Dogman territorial fights in northeast Missouri? I don't get up to the northeast part of Missouri very often, but I have heard both Bigfoot and Dogman sightings up that way. So wouldn't surprise me. I think that sighting report right there from Fort Leonard Wood That one, it fits right in because that area, well, Steve can tell you, that area is thickly wooded. The Mark Twain is heavy woods.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's like
there is.
Leonard Wood is 25,000 plus acres.
well, just like
Yeah.
that area you showed me when we were going across that big bridge. When we were going, I think we were going to I can't remember where we were going that night, but you said, "Hey, look off to your right out there," and we were kind of dropped down into that gorge and went out that way, and just all that green. You said that's part of the Mark Twain. It was just like, I mean, it's like something you would see in a movie. It was just like you drops down this gorge, and it's just like nothing but a canopy of green. You're like, what in the world could
Ocean
be?
of trees.
Yeah, what in the world could be
Yeah.
underneath that canopy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You could the Mark Twain. You can walk 10 feet and you can be out of sight.
In some
And we used to
places, not
joke
even
around.
that far. You
Well,
get
like I
down
said,
by
we used to
Shell
joke around.
Rock,
When I
the
was in.
woods are right up to the edge of the road.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was in Boy Scouts, we used to joke around in the Mark Twain that you could, take a dump 6 feet from somebody and they'd never see you. It's just thick.
Yeah, Mark Twain is a place where a person could get disappeared pretty easy and not even anything get involved. You could just get turned around and lost, and it might take you days to wander out of there. Yeah, assuming you ever do.
Right. Stumble out with a beard and, asking what year it is.
Yeah, Robin Race's 25,000 acres rookie acreage. Well, Fort Leonard Wood is 25,000 acres that butts up into the Mark Twain, which is was it 3.5 or 3.6 million acres?
Yeah, it was big.
Mark
Yeah,
Twain's huge,
there's a tiny bit of real estate involved there.
a little bit. Dr. 45 says Mark Twain is up where I grew up. Mark Twain covers a big chunk of the state.
Yeah.
Now, Mark Twain runs all
If
the
you
way
were born in Missouri,
Mark Twain runs pretty much down to Arkansas from just south of St. Louis.
yeah, if you were born in Missouri, Mark Twain was near where you grew up.
Michael
Yep,
Scott says the Ocala National Forest is the hot spot down there. Yeah.
I've been in Ocala for something growled at me and Marty.
Yeah, that's down in Florida.
Yeah,
Where is that?
Florida. In Florida.
It's near Ocala, Florida. Where were you when you were with Jessica? Was that in Georgia?
Georgia, yeah, up in the mountains of Georgia.
Y'all had some woolly encounters up there too.
Yeah, and then we had some interesting stuff at the LBL too. I've got to say I've been lucky because I've seen some weird crap in the past couple of years.
Dr. 45-120 said that's close to the South Gate, where he grew up, apparently. Yeah. And where we were at in Smiddle Cave ain't far from the South Gate. That's right in that Grove Springs area. Stellar Outdoors has a question. I didn't see it. Let me see if I can find it. Hello, new viewer. Well, I'll just put it up on screen. There we go. It says new viewer here. Have any of y'all heard any Florida skunk ape encounters or stories from people who have? Yeah, we hear skunk ape stories all the time. There's a lot of really good researchers down in Florida. Could turn you on to a number of channels that basically just investigate in Florida. But the resource we're using tonight, you can use yourself. Anyone can access it. It's called mapsquatch.com. MAPSQUATCH.com. Map Squatch. And it documents both Dogman and Bigfoot, as well as UFO and ghost encounters. You can streamline the search for whatever you're looking for. Just zoom in on the area you want to search, and you'll find lots of them. I mean, you could look at just the state of Florida and find literally tons of Bigfoot encounters. Probably some right in your area. So, check out Map Squatch. And if you don't find anything on Map Squatch, which I'm sure you will, but if you don't find anything on Map Squatch, check the BFRO's database. Lewis Hunt will give us a super chat. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. But the BFRO has a really good database of sightings and stuff. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up another Map Squatch, and I'm going to pull up the area around Florida. Oh, God, yes. Yeah, Florida is just dotted with Bigfoot sightings and some Dogman sightings. But there's a ton of Bigfoot sightings. If you go to mapsquatch.com, you'll be reading Bigfoot encounters in Florida for hours.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
A lot of that kind of stuff seems to be focused on Florida. I don't know if it's because of all the swampland or what.
Well, Ocala there's a base out there. It's national forest, and same thing that we were just talking about. I mean, it's a place where they can go and not have to worry about being messed with. And it's just, it's massive. You drive through there, and there's just you can't. There's certain areas that you can go camp, and there's certain areas that you can drive kind of off the road into. But for the most part, there's a big steel cable that runs the entire length on both sides of the road. You can't, obviously you can get out and walk over it, step up, but you can't get out and drive over it in most places. But, some of the places you probably don't want to, because that's where they do the bomb testing. So you get out there and get lost, and you're probably not going to come back. You're probably going to be a greasy spot on the ground somewhere. But, it's massive out there, and you talk about spooky at night. Whew.
Stellar Outdoors says, I go camping in the Ocala dozens of times each year, and I've had a recent unexplained situation right after the hurricane and floods. Yeah, go to mapsquatch.com and zoom in on Florida. I'm sure you're going to find encounters very close, if not right where you were, because there are literally hundreds of them in Florida. There's a ton of sighting encounters to check out.
Ooh, thanks for the super chat.
Hey, yeah, definitely. Thank you for the super chat.
Is it W. Leonard Athos? I probably butchered that.
Probably no worse than me. Someone was saying, Steve Stepanek says you should take Dixie Cryptids with you the next time. I would love to, but Cam is a busy dude, and getting him nailed down is kind of like nailing down Jello.
Yeah.
So this is kind of on topic, kind of not, but I think you'll appreciate when I mention it. So since these, horrible wildfires have been going on in California, have we heard anything more about any cryptid activity, keying up as a result of that?
I haven't really been looking for anything like that. That's something I should probably dig in, but I'd be willing to bet over the next couple months we get a lot of sightings from firefighters, and what do they call those guys?
Smoke jumpers.
I was going to say flame jumpers. I knew that wasn't it.
Smoke jumpers.
And those roughneck crews that go out to try to make fire breaks, I'd be willing to bet they've seen some crap. They just haven't had the time to come forward with it.
Well, I was just thinking, you've got a bunch of humans who have lost their habitat. What about the non-human type mammals?
Thank you, Paul, for subscribing to the channel. Paul Boyer subscribed to the channel. Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. But every time there's a big fire in any of those areas, within months of the fire, we get all these firefighter reports of them seeing creatures, sometimes carrying their young or sometimes wounded from the fire. So it would not surprise me over the next couple of months if we start getting some of these firefighters from this one coming forward. But every time we have a major forest fire, there's always stories.
I was just curious. It's one of those random thoughts that just hit me.
My guess is if there's using caves like we think, they're probably smart enough to get the hell out of the way of it and probably go deep.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
No, I would.
Well, you think that we would be too, but how many people died, trying to put out their house with a swimming pool?
True. I mean, sometimes we ain't the smartest animals on the planet. I was reading an article about a couple that survived, and it wasn't this fire; it was a previous fire. They survived by hiding in their swimming pool. They dove in the swimming pool, and they would come up for air and breathe through a t-shirt because there was
Mhm.
crap falling, but debris and embers falling out of the air. But they stayed in their pool for hours until fire rescue got to
Yeah,
them.
that's in my I won't say it was firefighter 101 or firefighter 1 class. We had to go through all that with like if something happens and you're caught in fire in a wildland fire, because I had to go through wildland firefighting and all that stuff too. But that was one of the things they teach you is how to survive in the water if there's a big fire over top of you, and that's it. Is taking the because number one, that keeps any kind of stuff that's in the air from getting in your system. Number two, it keeps that superheated air, which can still kill you even if you're breathing. You breathe in that superheated air, it can. Steve, you can imagine what it does to your lungs breathing that in. So you put a
Oh yeah.
wet cloth over that, and that keeps you from breathing in that superheated air.
They taught us in my trauma classes that if you have somebody present with burns to the face, you automatically intubate them because if their faces are burnt, that means their airway is probably burnt, and you're fitting to lose that airway. And Doc could probably tell you how important it is to be able to actually have an airway.
Yeah. And Scott said if we ever want to poke around down in Florida, hit him up.
Heck yeah,
Sweet.
I'd be interested. If we ever get down that way,
Yeah.
shoot a message and let them know we're going to be there. That would be. I'd like
Yep.
to. I'd like to go into areas with a local guide because last thing I need to do is go down there and get lost because I don't know the area.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind going back down to the Ocala convention because that's a pretty good one.
I didn't get to go to that. I wanted to, but I didn't get to.
It was good.
I heard it's big.
Yeah.
It's only a 1 day event, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just Saturday.
That's a tough one for me to make as a vendor because that's a long way to drive on the odd chance I'll sell books to break even.
That's why I didn't go as a vendor. I just went as just as a spectator on that one.
That's why I don't do a lot of Bigfoot conventions, and because if it's just a 1 day event, I would have to sell like gangbusters on that 1 day to make it worth the trip. I'd have to sell books like they're out of style.
I was going to say you'd have to sell like it's nickel night at a cat house.
No kidding.
Well, I mean that's the way the one in Gatlinburg was that 1 day, and I mean,
yeah, there's no way we would have broke even if I'd have bought a table at Gatlinburg.
Yeah,
because it just wasn't that much foot traffic.
I think we're going to do pretty good at the one in Ohio again this year because she got an even bigger place this year, and that was good. It's 2 days, and I enjoyed. That's one of the best ones I've been to. I think that was really good. We met some good people, made some good contacts, had a good time.
It was fun. It sure was. Yeah, and it's going to be at a bigger venue this year, so hopefully it'll be even bigger.
Well, I mean, it was, that Friday, there were people there, but I was like, Saturday, I mean, they were having to shuttle people from an extra 2 or 3 extra parking lots.
Yeah, they got overwhelmed with parking. They didn't know where to put people.
Yeah, because there was just people just coming and showing up.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Kevin Bode says it's in Salina, isn't it? I think so. I think that's where it's at.
What the
conference this year? The one?
No, it's still in Greenville.
No, she moved it to. It's a different place.
Well, the venue's different, but it's still in the same city.
The address she sent me had a different address.
Yeah, she moved to a different venue, but I think this unless it missed it by just a little bit. I thought she said it was the same city. I mean, it's not far from where we were at. It's just at a different venue because she wanted to get a bigger one. It's like whatever this fairgrounds is, and that may be what the name of what he's talking about. That may be the name of the fairgrounds.
Could be. Got another one for you. This one's, within just a few miles of where we were at Smithtle Cave, Robbie. I mean, close. Said in the fall of 2020, off cedar tree line off each side of a 2-lane road near Grove Springs, which we were real close to Grove Springs, south of Lebanon off Highway 5. Um, not going to read the name, but they're from Grove Springs. At about 9 or 10:30 a.m., they'd left home on Highway TT heading to Lebanon. It was a beautiful day, just past the junction of NN, driving about 40 miles an hour. As I looked to my left, there stood a huge Bigfoot, reddish brown, long hair, about 3.5 inches wide across, no, 3.5 feet wide across its chest, with its arms dangling to his sides. His hands were long enough to go past his hips. Stunning creature. As I passed, he had already cleared the tree line, stood as if to look back and forth for traffic. We locked eyes and looked at each other till I was past him. He wasn't startled. He just stood there as if he knew me. I smelled a musky odor in the air. It was definitely a large male. No fear at all. About 9 feet tall. It was huge. If I would have stopped, I feel like I could have shook hands with him. No photo, but I keep my phone on camera from now on. It was a daytime sighting. So she keeps her camera option up on the phone now.
I would think that a squatch that size would be the very definition of F around and find out.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to stop and try to shake its hand, just in case it decides to keep it.
Well, it's like, where does an 8-foot Bigfoot go? Wherever the hell it wants.
Yeah, pretty much. And I know right where that area is at. I mean, that is, dude, that's probably 2 miles as the crow flies from where we were at Smithtle Cave.
Well, when we went back up there after dark that time, when we found those people camping, and we went back up to that little area where we had stopped earlier. Was it the same day that we went back, or we go back a different day?
We went back a different day.
But anyway, we went back up to that area, that same area, and we stopped and kind of got out. It was really, really, you could still hear things, but it was kind of eerily quiet in that area. But not so quiet as to think something was like right there with us, but either something had been there pretty soon or pretty, recently, or maybe was just leaving the area when we pulled up and things were just starting to kind of pick back up a little bit.
Check this one out, Robbie. This one is at the Smithtle Cave Conservation Area.
Oh, shit.
I
was just about to say I want to go with you next time.
I want to start.
Come on, Stevie.
I don't know what I saw. I know it wasn't a bear. Having said that, I don't know what to think. I'm attaching a Google document that has pictures of what we found. So this last Saturday at about 12:30, my hunting partner and I went to Smithtle Cave to scout and see what conservation is cleared out. We crossed the creek bottom right there where we took your truck over. To where there's a small food plots right there where that little camping area is.
Mm-hmm.
What we then saw sort of swayed a few times before taking off to the right and stopping. Not being sure what we saw, we crossed into the next field and discussed what it was. We turned around and went back to the field where we had seen the creature and it was gone. We crossed back to where it had been and found a large fresh footprint. I put my foot down next to the print, and I wear a size 10.5, and that print was way bigger than my foot. We estimate it to be 16 to 18 inches long. In that same area, we found broken trees that had been piled up and then wove between other trees. What does that? Also, the limb we thought was maybe 5 or 6 feet off the ground was more like 8 to maybe 9 feet off the ground. What we saw was big, and when it moved, it almost glided. It was dark gray with brown hair. It was bipedal. I couldn't make out facial features or say 100% what it was. We were too far away. But what is bipedal and what seems to glide when it walks?
Patty?
Bears are on the hind legs. They're kind of ungainly when they walk. But How has the way Bigfoot walked been described by people? As it didn't have any
Like,
bounce to it, as if it was
yep, like
gliding
it was
along the surface.
Mhm.
like it was on cross country skis.
And what have we
Yep.
compared that to? And how we're how to walk when we clear a house, when we kick a door?
Mm-hmm.
You keep
Yep.
your knees bent and you walk, with a flat foot placement to minimize noise and to eliminate bounce of the weapon as you're moving.
hmm
We're
Yeah,
training
you roll
that
your
way.
heels like a marching band
Exactly.
performer.
And it's doing that. I guarantee it walks that way as an adaptation because it makes less noise and it's a smoother movement. It doesn't make as much displacement when it moves. So
Well,
I guarantee that's a natural adaptation.
and two,
Well,
that book Rogue that I was reading, it kind of talked about that too, a little bit, that because of the mid-tarsal break and all that stuff, and it being able to put its foot flat down would help minimize, instead of having like our foot kind of slaps, and it's hard to kind of control that. When they put their foot flat down, it distributes the weight and minimizes the noise, and that's why you have them sink into the ground when they make a step versus something else. Like, if you look at a lot of these Bigfoot tracks versus, say, grizzly bears, I mean, you have a grizzly that weighs over 1,000 pounds, but it won't have as deep of a track. But that's because of the way that their feet displace their weight. And you
Yeah.
think about, and it made a lot of sense. The guy did a lot of research on stuff. You can tell.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and a thing to think of here,
Literal
that makes a
iteration.
big difference. Oh, I'm sorry, DA. I didn't mean to talk over you.
I'm just saying I found that one really particularly interesting because it was literally right there.
Yep.
That's Middle Cave.
Yeah. But that change in gait makes a huge difference. I work in a pretty concentrated urgent care. We're standing on top of each other all the time, and it's almost a nightly occurrence when I scare the hell out of somebody because I walked right up on them and they didn't know I was there. And years and years and years of band and walking, with a heel roll. At my heaviest, I was a 250-pound dude, and I moved really quiet for a big dude. And size that up to 7, 8, 9 foot critter makes a difference. I found one that I find kind of interesting here for you, gentlemen. It's in Berry County, and it's on the Flat Creek past Double E Highway, about 2 miles past Double E. I'm not familiar with that piece of real estate, but you might be, DA. I'm always doing outdoor activities, floating, camping, hiking. Recently, I've had some strange encounters. First, I'd like to go to conservation areas frequently. At the Wire Road Conservation Area off of Grisham Ford Road in Crane, I was there with a friend. It was just after sunset when something would throw very large rocks into the Crane Creek. That's all it consisted of it splashing into the creek. It sounds like bowling ball sized rocks being thrown into the water, making not only a splash, but a kerplunk noise. This really made me and my friend wonder what was making this noise. We were very open minded about what could cause it, and it happened on multiple occasions, all shortly after sunset when no one else was at the conservation area. We told several people about this, and of course, everyone would say it's probably just ducks. But like I said, the objects in the water were very large and making a kerplunk. Since when does a duck make a kerplunk?
That's
It
a
was
big
kerplunk
duck.
noise like I said, that's a big damn duck.
That duck made of concrete.
You got an albatross hanging out there in the water.
Kidding.
It made this kerplunk noise like a cannonball. Just as we finally had given up on the search for the cause of the splashing, months had gone by, and me and the same friend went on a float trip. It happened to be the 4th of July in 2008. We planned to float in my canoe on Flat Creek from Jenkins Bridge all the way to a low water bridge on Flat Creek Road, a very long float. The float started about midday, and about halfway through the float, it was very dark and cloudy, so no moonlight. It was just pitch dark on the creek, and at a slow, deep section of the creek, we were just quietly floating along, not talking, when it seemed like we startled something very large about 20 feet away. It was just standing in the edge of the creek when we startled it, so it stepped out of the creek. You could hear one leg pull out of the water, followed by one more, and displaced a lot of water, making waves. It made a couple more steps up and land in a very forested area. Me and my friend were stunned, just remaining dead silent and staring at the area where the noise originated. Then a very large rock was thrown within 5 feet of the boat, exactly like the occurrences in Crane. Even though we never saw the creature, it was very clear it was a large bipedal creature because of the very long strides out of the deep water. It seems we startled it, So it walked just out of sight, not really frightened though. Then it threw a rock to warn us to get away. It's a pretty effective warning. Sounds like the crap that was going down there at our
Ferry.
little center, Combs Ferry. Thank you. It just went blank. Whatever was out there was throwing something big enough that it's bigger than a human would throw that distance.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's what Wyatt and Richard said happened to them in one of the coves on Table Rock. That something was chucking like bowling ball-sized rocks at them.
Yeah, people don't realize how damn heavy rocks are.
Yeah, a rock the size of a bowling ball probably weigh 200 pounds.
Oh, easily. I was going to say a rock the size of a German Shepherd. You're talking of something in excess of 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at these landscaping rocks people have in front of their houses that are like, maybe a yard by about 2 feet tall. The damn things are like 1,000 pounds.
Or more.
Well,
look how
they bring
how
them in with a
much-
backhoe.
When we were in Combs Ferry, how much that concrete tabletop weighed, but it was, 40 feet away from the campsite where it had been ripped from and dropped in the middle of the trail.
Oh, yeah. And 6 of us couldn't pick up what was left of it.
Well, just think about the ones that we found over in Joe Ball, DA, me and Noah, that had sections or sides of them just broken off, clean.
Off, yeah.
I mean, how much strength would it take to break a corner off those things?
A lot. And you would
More
think
than
if
I
somebody
got.
did that with a sledgehammer, that it would have left behind hammer marks on the concrete, but there were no
You
marks.
think?
Yeah, no tool marks.
Yeah, no tool marks on it.
That was some funny stuff down there, though. You look at some of these broken ice tables and you see a box of Krispy Kremes.
Yeah, full box of Krispy Kremes. We decided it was a good idea to leave those the hell alone.
Yeah.
Lest something be upset, we took their Krispy Kremes.
Yeah, never fuck with a Sasquatch with hypoglycemia.
I've seen what happens when you get between a group of cops and a box of donuts on a table in a briefing room. I don't want to get between something that's 8 feet tall and 500 pounds.
I was going to say, you seen how bitchy I get when I need a protein bar.
Mm.
Well, here's another one. This one's from, not far from where I worked in Walnut Grove as an officer. It's near Ash Grove, which is about 10 miles away. In fact, it was one of those neighboring departments that we would back each other up on calls since there was generally so few of us on duty. So I'm really well familiar with this area. This was the fall of 2004. So the report says, I grew up on a dairy farm and would bring in the cows for the evening milking. This was often done on horseback, both for pleasure and convenience. Since I was only 10 years old at the time, I didn't have to actually milk the cows after they were at the barn. I could ride the horse while my brother and my father milked. On the evening of the incident, I was riding our Appaloosa gelding south from the barn lot toward the back of our farm. Most of our farm had been cleared by dozing 8 years before, but the farm behind ours was completely overgrown with trees and brush, and it hadn't been used for anything in several years. The east boundary of our farm was a river, and there are many caves and sinkholes in that area due to the karst topography. As I mentioned above, most of our farm was open, so visibility was good. I'd ridden about 100 yards west of the barn and was within about 100 yards of the back fence when Ace, our horse, stopped walking. I kicked him in the ribs a little bit to get him going again, but he would only go a step or two and then stop again. This went on for several minutes with me trying to force Ace, who was a very well behaved horse, to go forward. I only managed to get him to go perhaps 20 or 30 yards before he would go no further. All the while, he was stamping his front feet and snorting air out of his nose in great puffs, as well as having his ears laid back against his head. I was getting very frustrated with him and was slapping the reins against his flanks and kicking my heels into him, but he would not go any farther. At this time, from behind a small cedar A large black humanoid creature stood up, as though it had been crouched there hiding. It turned toward the back of our fence of our farm, being just on our side of the fence. I took 4 or 5 long strides walking upright. It took 4 or 5 long strides walking upright and then jumped over the fence like a man would jump over something, rather like just a hop. I didn't get a chance to watch that after that because Ace turned and bolted back for the barn, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. I was barely able to stay in the saddle. He was running so recklessly. I got my father and brother, and we went back to where what I saw had been, but it was long gone. I remember that it was not covered with long stringy hair as these things are often reported. It was very dark from head to toe. I saw it from about 60 to 70 yards away, clearly with nothing between us, and it just jumped the fence. It was probably 6 to 6:30 p.m., but it was only late September, so it was still light out at the time. There were other occurrences in the area with screams or cries at night, the sound of crashing movement in the brush near our house, and a putrid, rotten smell that, when smelled while coon hunting, would cause the hound to come running back to us, and they would slink around at our heels with their tails between their legs. These things happened over several years, but mine was the only actual sighting of anything by my family. And that's just
Wow.
Springfield, just a few miles.
Mm.
Not far at all. And we'll be going out that way too.
Missouri's just it never ceases to, or it never disappoints. Put it that way. Because even if you don't actually have some kind of, you usually find something like, we didn't technically have any kind of encounter on Blunt Road, but we found the deer.
We heard screams in the distance on Moon Valley.
Yep.
I tell you what Wes told me about Moon Valley?
You sure did.
And when I've told him about the cannibals down there?
What did I say the entire time we were down there? Wes just proved what I said. I said that I don't like this place. I'd 100 times rather deal with a pack of dogmen and a herd of Bigfoot than I had to deal with these things.
Deal with actual cannibals.
Well, the funny thing is that you say that, considering of all the people I know, you're the most likely to walk balls out into something.
Right,
and,
and not that I'm scared. It just, that is just like stomach churning to me, and I don't want anything to deal with it. It's not that I would still cancel some birth certificates if I needed to, if I was dealing with them, but it's just I don't know. It's kind of like, you know how child molesters are viewed in prison. It's kind of the same, that almost that same feeling of how I view something like that. Because just to do that to another person.
Well, I mean, that's why the Wendigo is so horrible a story. They committed the ultimate sin. They ate a person.
Yeah.
Well,
you don't come back from that.
That because of the cannibalism, and they believe that went on for years down there. They just can't prove it. Wes said he believes because of the cannibalism down there that place will always have a stain of evil on it and will continue to attract the strange and bizarre. It will be attracting all kinds of crap down there. And we've had some weird experiences down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll deal with a pack of dogmen or a herd of Bigfoot. I ain't worried about that. I mean, like I said, I'm not that I'm worried about the other. I'd deal with it if I had to. I don't like the occult part of things. That just does not appeal to me. I love cryptids and stuff and the supernatural, and nothing against any of y'all out there who like the supernatural stuff and like the spooky stuff and the ghosts and all that. That's just not my cup of tea. I don't like spooky stuff. Give me the monsters all day long. Just don't give me the specters and the ghosts and the spooks and all that stuff.
You've got the perfect blend of bravery and stupidity, and that's where you draw the line.
Hey, what Clint Eastwood say? Man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah, and that's why I love you. So I found one here as we were talking that kind of interested me a little bit. This is fairly close to our stomping grounds here, DA. It is in Lafayette County, and it looks like it's kind of, let me see, it's up by Kansas City, it looks like. Maybe a little north of Kansas City, maybe St. Joe. I was in the woods with my friend. It was 6:29 p.m., and the ground was wet. From 10 yards or so away, between two trees, a blackish figure about 8 feet tall moved. I saw it directly for only a split second. The cat we were with was on a tree stump nearby and was looking right by where we saw it, and her hair was all puffed up. Then we heard two splashes together as it crossed a puddle. Then the neighbor's dog ran up to the fence, out of sight. One barked. The sound was repeated, but in a more girthy tone. It was repeated over and over again on different sides of the lake. Then everything got louder and very intense, and we heard a cow move from across the lake. They don't have any cows. We went inside. They're classifying that as a Class A. And I don't know if I give it that high a rating, but
well, and that's why we said it at first that we've kind of gone away from their rating system because they cherry pick what they want. Number one, and number two, we don't know what they use to say. Okay, this is A, this is B, this is C. So that's why
sure.
Rodney made us a checklist. Couldn't think of the word. Made us a checklist of how we want to go ahead and rate our, and this is just us. It's nobody else. It's just us. Of what we basing it on, like evidence, audio, footprints, visuals, all that kind of stuff. That way, when we go out,
add in the category of scent too. If they smell that rotten garbage, wet dog smell, because I would certainly give that credibility, especially if it's an area where their sightings have been.
Yeah, because and that's something we smelled up in Jones Gap that time when we, me and Johnny and all them went up there. That rotten meat, wet dog smell.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've smelled that many times out in the woods.
I'd say that's a very good indicator that we need to add to it. Because a lot of times that accompanies.
Little Patty says Lafayette County is the southeast of Kansas City. It's the county she lives in.
Oh, okay. So I have my geography wrong. It's actually south of Kansas City, not north. They don't have the counties marked on the map, so clearly my my Missouri geography ain't what it should be.
Sorry, I'm responding to something real quick.
No problem.
When y'all have had a turn to read a couple of sightings, I found another one that amuses me because at some point the author decided that they were outgunned and went for their 8mm rifle.
Go ahead, go for it. If you got one prepped and in the chamber, go for it.
Oh yeah, I got one locked and loaded. This one's just a little bit outside of Missouri, but not too far. It took place on October 15th, 1994. So about the time I moved to the Ozarks, but it occurs in Saline. I'm probably mispronouncing it, all you Arkansas folks. Saline County, Arkansas, near Benton. It was a wooded hilltop near the cell towers. I previously sent an email of this experience, but it occurred in the fall of 1994. We had just moved into our home here, and the deer were always coming up to our back fence and causing these little wimp dogs of mine to go into cardiac arrest, especially at night when I was trying to go to sleep. So I was in the habit of taking a small rifle and shooting around into the trees to frighten the deer away and shut the dogs up. One night, I decided to take my single shot, break over 410 into the woods on trail to really scare them away. So carrying a flashlight, the gun, broke open, one round loaded, and two more rounds, I went off into the woods. About 30 yards into them, I heard movement to my right at about 1 o'clock. Shining my light at the brush, I saw the thing standing stock still. I could tell it was about 7 feet, and it was half again as broad across the shoulders as me. Now, I'm 6'1" and 300 pounds, so I'm not a little fella by any means. But I was next to this thing. It had brownish orange fur over what I could see of it. Its body and its face were dark. My light reflected in its eyes like an animal. I'm assuming he's talking about eye shine. At the time, it grunted and made to move towards me. Being a redneck, the first thing I did was to close the gun, aim, and fire. I know I didn't miss because he was only about 30 to 35 yards away, and I saw fur fly. It yelled and began to move towards again and began to walk backwards. And began to move towards again and began to walk backwards. I'm wondering if the author was moving backwards. Anyway, it's not worded well. Reloaded the gun and never taken the light off of it. I fired again, not missing, and he really started to move on me. So I did this one more time, this time firing one-handed. I turned and ran from the woods to my house. My wife was on the back porch when I came out of the woods, and I yelled for her to get my 8mm rifle. She met me with it. I spun around, fully expecting to see the thing on me. It wasn't there. I could hear it running through the woods, which isn't easy with all the undergrowth here. It let out a long, loud, warbling yell that reminded me of sounds you might hear at the primate house at the zoo. That is a brown pants moment there, gentlemen.
Yeah. It surely is.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's why I want
when
to
you're
carry something that's a little more than a single shot.
well, I was going to say, when you're asking for your 8mm rifle, yeah,
Is that a Mauser? Is the 8mm a Mauser?
that's a Mauser, yeah. And I mean, that's, you know, when we were doing our little debriefing for our last expedition there at Combs Ferry, you know, when I had the realization that 9mm wasn't going to do shit for whatever was out there, that is a terrifying moment.
Well, I think we're switching it up from 9s to 45s this time.
Fair enough.
I think we're all going to have
And,
a 45, and Robbie and I at least are going to have a 357 Magnum. So I'm going to
I
have
was
at
gonna
least
say,
two
I'll-
pistols.
I thought we decided
I'll
because
pick-
you said Noah didn't have all he had was a 9mm. I thought we decided to go with the 9s instead of the 45s because
Maybe we will be.
I will,
We'll figure it out.
we were. That's
I
what
will
we were talking
pack
about.
my,
We said, wait a minute, Noah doesn't have a 45. All he's got's a 9 because he's got the dagger. So
Mhm.
we decided to go with 9s.
Well, I will pack my G17 and I'll carry my 45 in a shoulder holster.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing. I've got a shoulder holster. I'm thinking about have one on my belt, one in a shoulder holster, and maybe one in a chest rig. I'm going prepared this time.
Seriously. I mean, as we were exfilling from that area, I was really hoping that you know, I had my AR with me and had possession of some armor-piercing ammo, which I do not own.
Yeah, we were when we got on that boat for the last time coming out of Combs Ferry. That was the point Robbie and I looked at each other and were like, next time we bring bigger guns. Because that was kind of a sobering
Seriously.
moment when we looked back at shore and saw all that freaking eye shine. We were like, we were just
Yeah.
standing there. That's where we were just at.
Hey, Pally, don't go on the end of the movie from Abominable
Yeah,
when the principal from
smoking in moisture.
no he was the principal in the movie where they're all in detention on Saturday morning. God,
Breakfast
I'm
Club.
gonna yes, Breakfast Club. I was about to say I'm going to feel so stupid when I with Emilio Estevez and Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy and all them. He's
It's
the
a great
principal in
film.
that movie, but he's also the sheriff in Abominable, and he acts just like he did in the Breakfast Club because he goes, "Hey pal, hey pally," and they all turn around.
He's a real,
They all turn
he's a real
around. There's
cock whistle
20
in the
of them.
Breakfast Club.
W.
There's
Leonard Athos wanted to know how many sets of eyes we saw when we were coming out of Combs Ferry. It was a bunch. If I had to guess, I'd probably say in the ballpark of about a dozen.
Way
I
more than
was
we
going to
wanted
say,
to.
in the
And they were
picture
all
that
pretty high off the ground. They were higher than
Yeah.
we were.
what was
But
the
there was like a
boatman's name
light
again?
patchy fog on the water. So we would like light up some and then they would kind of fade back and we would light up more in another area. Then there'd be more in that back first area again. And
Yeah.
Don
What
says
was
he's
the
taking his
boatman's name
KSG.
again?
Yeah, I may take mine.
Do what, Steve?
The dude on the boat. What was his name again?
Richard.
Richard.
Richard. Thank you. On the picture that he showed us, which wasn't great, mind you, I saw at least 4 sets of eye shine in that. and
Thank you for the super
it
chat,
was not a
Josh.
great photo. Thank
Yeah,
you, Josh.
because there was kind of a light patchy fog, none of the pictures of the eye shine came out. There's a couple where you can kind of see a little bit of eye shine, but that super bright spotlight and we were taking pictures with our cameras, they just weren't really getting anything because of that fog.
Mm.
But yeah, it was kind of a butt puckering moment as we're like backing out, and then Richard lit that area up, and we're like, God dang it! That was literally
Yeah.
feet from where we had just been standing.
Yeah, well,
It was green eye shine.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
like we got Joe Bald.
yeah, when he pulled back up though, and you was like, can we try to take all three back instead of having one? And Richard was like, yeah, we'll do what
We'll
we
make
need
that
to do.
happen. We'll just have to go slow.
Yeah, there was definitely a need to unask the AO at that moment.
Well, when they were still all seven of us on the ground, they were getting froggy. We were already getting stuff thrown at us. We were hearing stuff moving. They were getting
shit, yeah.
closer. That was right after Noah heard what he described as gibberish language in the parabolic.
Yeah, they were talking Ghibli at us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would estimate the rock that were coming through were easily the size of a men's softball, maybe bigger. They were making a good thump thump when they hit the ground, and it was bigger than I would have estimated a human would have thrown from a distance that we couldn't see them.
Right. And you could hear them smacking leaves and crap as they sailed through.
Well, yeah, and they didn't roll much either. When they hit the ground, it was like this thump thump. You got like a bounce and a maybe an after bounce, but you didn't get the roll like a lightweight rock would do. And we were on kind of a hill there. Yeah, you got that thump as it kind of rolled off towards the armadillos and shit that we were seeing out there.
Yeah, that's a creepy place, especially at night.
Oh, it is. It definitely is. Well, like I said, I would feel better if I was better armed, and
well, we're definitely going to be better armed. Well, that area down there, that area around Table Rock, that is a fairly small area with five massive lakes. You've got Lake Taneycomo, you've got Table Rock Lake, you've got Bull Shoals Lake, Beaver Lake, and there's another one down there. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Norfolk Lake, I think it is. Yeah, Norfolk.
Maybe I couldn't tell you.
There's at least 5 big lakes down there. There's the Norfolk, the Bull Shoals, the Lake Taneycomo, Table Rock, and then what was that, Beaver Lake? I think it was.
Beaver.
Yeah. So there's a lot of water down there.
I would think there would be some fertile hunting grounds for any kind of a carnivore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is some rough territory down there too. Heavily wooded, remote, not a lot of towns.
Well, and I mean, the place we were was a decommissioned campground. I mean, humans aren't even supposed to be there.
There's a lot of smaller lakes down there too that aren't that big, but there's still plenty of even smaller lakes. Like there's one in Arkansas called Loch Lomond. Yeah, that's kind of a cool one. Lake Windsor, Lake Anne. These are all pretty decent sized. I mean, they're not Table Rock size. Lake Norwood. There's some good sized smaller lakes down there. That whole area is thickly wooded and got plenty of water.
Mm-hmm. There's an abundance of water, an abundance of wildlife, and a deficit of humans.
Yeah. And then not too far away over when you get into Oklahoma is Grand Lake of the Cherokees, and that's bigger than Table Rock. That is a massive lake. And down a little farther, you get Broken Bow, and there's a lot of water within a couple 100 miles of that whole area.
Broken Bow still needs to be a bucket list thing for us too.
Yep, Fort Gibson Lake. There's a lot of water down in there in that area.
Well, and how much national park land are you talking there? I mean, you got Mark Twain, and then what is it down towards Oklahoma? Is it the Ozarks National Forest?
Ozark is down in Arkansas, but there's more national forest over toward Oklahoma too. Between the Mark Twain and the Ozark, just those two alone's about 5 or 6 million acres.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, that's it.
A
You weren't
tiny bit
on
of
the
real
night.
estate.
You weren't on the night when we started doing the math, Steve.
No, he wasn't.
We were talking about how Teddy Roosevelt had put aside the national parks, and that was shockingly 88 million, like 88.5 million acres of national park land, which is a lot of
Dude.
land. And so we started like adding it up though. We were looking at national parks, we added in state parks, we had wildlife management areas, BLM land, and national forests, which aren't covered under national parks. When we added all of that up, that's over 1 billion acres. Billion with a B.
He said it's 88 million, or
That's
how
just
much is
national
it again?
parks.
Yeah, that's just
just
national parks.
Right, but the area of the Ozark National Park and the Mark Twain, how much is it again?
Between 5 and 6 million somewhere.
6. Okay, so
Call it
we'll
6
split
million.
the
It's pretty
difference.
close to that.
So 6 million. Gotta get our decimals. Point.
And again, that's national forest, not national parks. Big
Sure.
difference.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see. Times. Doing a little quick math here. Wish my wife were in here.
That doesn't count tribal land either, and a lot of that is reserved, and you can't get into it.
So this is nearly 10,000 square miles of real estate.
And that's just the national parks.
That's just the national parks. 9,375 square miles.
You can hide a lot of big animals in that.
Mm-hmm.
That is I mean, even if you work on the assumption that these things have a large range and they have a square mile themselves, that's still over 9,000 critters.
You can hide some damn countries in that.
Yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Here's something for you, Robbie. Your boy Forrest Galante, he's on the bandwagon thinking that the saber-tooth may still be out there.
I told you. There's a
They think
if you jump
they
down
think they found the Tassie tiger again.
Oh, he's already said multiple times he's found that. I don't think he's released any of his videos yet. But if you jump down that rabbit hole about the saber-toothed tigers, there's from like Jordan and Cameroon and lots of places around that area where people still to this day report seeing large saber-toothed cats.
Well,
I'm talking like
wasn't that long ago, like just within the last 6 months, that a hunting party up in British Columbia had come across, I believe it was a caribou that had been killed by a big cat, and they sent pictures of the tracks to a local university. Said, yeah, that's definitely a large cat. Can you tell us how big it was? And it was the size of a dinner plate.
Here's one for you.
Like so 9 inches across.
The country of Luxembourg, there by Belgium, the entire fucking country, 998 square miles.
How big is England? If you count Scotland.
Let's see. So the UK?
Yeah.
So the UK in square miles it's bigger than we thought, 94,000. So it's 1/10 the size of England. Let's see how big Wales is by itself.
Well,
okay, so Wales in square miles is 8,023 square miles. So we have more national forest than the country of Wales. National parks, I'm sorry.
National parks.
National parks than the country of Wales.
Well, when we added all that up, including Bureau of Land Management, wildlife management, public use areas, when we started out all that, it came up to just north of 1 billion acres. What is that in square miles?
Let's convert it.
1 billion square acres.
Let's see.
It was like 1.02 billion square acres or something like that when we added it all up.
Let's see. How much is one? So it's 1,562 square miles. No, that's a million. That ain't right. They can't
I was
add.
like, what?
Let me try this.
I'm like, wait, that doesn't
No,
sound right.
no. Google made a mistake. So it's
Google's made a mistake.
It is 1.562 million square miles. Fuck.
That is undeveloped land that we're not allowed to access.
Let's see. What country is 1.5 million square miles?
Yeah,
There's
Steve,
nowhere.
just think of the
I
size of
mean,
Siberia.
there's nowhere in the continental United States that something like that could hide.
My ass.
So the country of Mongolia has a land area of 600,000 square miles.
But we have more government land set aside for habitat than Mongolia has size.
Yeah.
Like I
By
said,
about
you could
twice
hide
as
some
much.
countries. You could hide some countries in that.
I was going to say that basically we have a whole country within a country. Let's see.
And we ain't overcrowded. We're just the cities are overcrowded.
So 1.5
Dr.
million square miles.
120, no, we didn't factor in military bases. Did not factor that in at all.
Let's see.
So that number would go up a lot more. So to reiterate something Robbie has said more times than once, it takes more faith to think this is a hoax than it does to actually believe in a creature like Bigfoot. Simply because for it to be a hoax means it's a global conspiracy dating back thousands of years to put out footprints and cause people to have sightings dating back thousands of years to every major civilization on the planet. It's a huge conspiracy.
Yeah, sure. Because there's not enough land for something to go undiscovered.
Dash 527057 says, I think Missouri, there's places where not many people ever go. That's a fact. There are places in the deep parts of the Mark Twain that I'm convinced may never have seen a person. And that's just here in Missouri. You get up into Alaska. I was reading about Alaska one time because of the size of Alaska. And I've said this before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. If you were physically able to explore, I mean, fully explore, walk over, check everything out. If you could physically explore 1 square mile a day, if you could do that, and Stephen and Robbie will tell you, that's a hell of a lot of ground to cover on foot to completely explore 1 square mile. But if you could explore 1 square mile a day, it would take you 120 years to explore all of Alaska. And that's exploring 1 square mile every day of your life.
That is ridiculous.
That's just Alaska.
Every day that ends in Y.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So, when we start talking about these habitats, Michael Scott was pointing out the Everglades or the Mark Twain or any parts of Alaska or, any of these big national parks where people are seeing these creatures. Yes, there is plenty of room for them to have a habitat to survive.
So here's one for you. I've been doing some quick math and digging through Wikipedia here. But 1.5 million square miles is roughly the size of the country of Argentina.
Jesus. Misty Haynes says, people wouldn't believe me probably if I said I'm still not 100% sold. I need to see it to believe it 100%, even though I can't explain the stuff I do see in here. And I get that. I mean, this is the show me state. You're going to have to show me. Yeah, that's pretty much our state motto. There's nothing wrong with wanting to see one. But I'm just saying, from the sheer amount of evidence, based on the preponderance of evidence, Robbie's going to know where I'm using that from. On the preponderance of evidence, it is impossible to dismiss it outright. And if you are dismissing it outright, you're burying your head in the sand.
Well, just ask this innocent bystander below DA and I. He was one of those that was like,
innocent bystander.
I need to see proof. I need to see this. Yeah, ask him what he was saying that night in Combs Ferry when he looked back after he dropped his expletive bombs at me. what he said.
Yeah. So part of my
Not on the
purpose,
fence anymore. Get me the hell out of
you know,
here.
way back on the day, back when it was just me and DA, back when we were, calling the show Two Assholes No Waiting. The whole purpose of this was that I was going to be the skeptic. He was going to be the believer. I was going to be the agnostic. I'm still probably the most skeptical of the three of us. Yeah. After that whole little encounter, I think the first thing that came out of my mouth was, fuck you, Robbie.
Yep.
And then beyond that, it was, I've got all the proof I need. Can we go now?
Robbie,
I think
she added Angela Monroe added a comment. I didn't even factor in. We can't even factor this in because we don't know how much in there. But when you add in caves, they have more habitat than we do.
That's like the X factor of all this anyway. There's no way. But to be more on the nose about what Steve said was, after the fuck you, Robbie, was, you remember what I said about needing to see a body in a morgue or on a slab or something like that? I'm like, yeah, Steve, I remember. He says, fuck that. I don't need to see that. I'm good. Let's go.
I'm ready to go now.
And about that maybe a little bit faster speed, but that general tone of, I'm done.
If Steve could have sprouted wings, he'd have flown back to the car.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I was moving as fast as my old gimpy broken leg would carry me at that point.
Well, dude, I'm telling you, by the time when Robbie and Noah and I were standing with our feet in the water on the edge of that boat ramp with our pistols drawn, I was right there with you. If I could have sprouted wings, I'd have flown my ass back to the car. It was getting hairy.
I was about the time the rock started flying, and I realized that that severed deer was like 8 feet up a tree. It was occurring to me that I was outgunned. I felt kind of like Brody in Jaws, thinking to myself, I'm gonna need a bigger boat. I'm like, I need a bigger damn gun, because I was instructed specifically to arm myself for wolf, mountain lion, and meth head, and I felt like I did a pretty good job of that.
We were all pretty well covered for something like that, but we certainly got more than any of us bargained for that night.
That is a fact.
Not only this next one, the safety brief is not only going to include who gets the med kits, but distributing extra magazines. I don't think anybody's going to be hitting the beach with anything less than about 500 rounds on them.
Well, the thought that was going through my mind at the end, thinking that most of you all were either law enforcement or ex-military, I was thinking, nobody gets Doc, nobody gets Doc, nobody gets Doc. I'm Doc. Okay, nobody gets Doc.
Well, 4 of the 7 were either law enforcement, military, or both.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember one
Jenkins
of my Marine
was never in
friends
the
saying,
military, but he was a career cop. Estrella is deployed multiple times, and he's also a career cop. I'm ex-Army, and I was a career cop. Robbie's a career cop. Although he wasn't in the military. You spent some time with a badge on your vest as well.
I did.
And you're medically trained, so you're pretty damn cool under fire. The only ones that weren't either law enforcement or military at some point in their career were Robbie or Wyatt and Noah, and they were both they both did great.
Well, they were stable as hell too. But I just kept on thinking of my Army friends going, nobody fucks with Doc. Nobody fucks with Doc. And y'all did a good job of protecting Doc, but Doc was scared shitless by the end of that.
Dr. 45120 says the difficult question becomes where the dead bodies or skeleton remains. I think for the most part, they're smart enough to hide their dead. But in the cases where we have found skeletons like Lovelock Cave, or I could show you a map of just where they found giant bones all over the United States. Every time we find giant bones, one of two things happens. Not military, but government officials step in and take them, or the Smithsonian does, and then they're gone. Once the government gets involved, those giant bones disappear.
But also,
who does most of the budget for the Smithsonian?
What you got to think about also, though, is I've been in the woods my whole life. I know bears exist, but I've never ever seen a bear skeleton. Barely have I ever seen a deer skeleton. I barely ever see any skeletons in there because there's so many critters and from flies and maggots and porcupines, squirrels, raccoons that will just take care of that stuff within no time.
Well, 50 years of running around the woods, I've seen bear shit once.
And
And we got bears in Missouri.
And
Yes,
like
we
Wyatt
do.
just pointed out, if what we say about or what we think about them living in caves is true, they probably take them down in the caves. Like you said, if they're smart enough to hide their dead.
Well, I'm personally convinced that these things are near human intelligence because in my mind, I think they're on the same kind of evolutionary trail that like Neanderthals and whatnot are. I think these are smarter than critters, and I think they bury their dead. I really do.
Let me share something.
They've been reported to use tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. Check this out. This is a map of
It's
the
only
United
slightly
States
disturbing.
where giant bones have been found. Every one of these locations has been confirmed of giant in excess of 7 and 8 feet. Giant bones have been unearthed and either taken by the Smithsonian or were seized.
And the Smithsonian knows nothing.
The Smithsonian refuses to admit they have any of them. You can't have that many bones discovered and them have no record of it. There's a reason that they dispose of those because it will change the narrative.
We forgot our receipt book. We'll bring you one right back.
Yeah, we'll email you one later.
So 2/3 of the Smithsonian's federal funding is the federal government.
Shocker.
They are a federal trust that was established in 1846 with a board of regents who is currently private. So we don't know who the board of regents are.
Eric says,
but they have a
wonder
they have a
Bigfoot. Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
Makes you wonder exactly how many more Bigfoot.
They have a budget of $1.25 billion.
You have that much money, think
Does
they
it-
could afford some record keepers.
Does it require $1.25 billion to dust off T-Rex skeletons?
Apparently,
And
a
they're
lot of
listed as a private institution, so their budget is not public. That's rather
Private
convenient.
institution, yet 2/3 of their budget comes from the federal government.
You got it.
What is that? One of the old things that make you go,
If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it just might be a duck.
That's right. So, in all those cases of them finding giant bones, well, Lovelock Cave is a prime example. They were described as red-haired giants, just like found in Kandahar.
Mm-hmm.
What are the odds some of those were at least Bigfoot-type creatures? Yet, we get no official records from no official anything from the Smithsonian. And since they're a private institution, they don't have to tell us, even though 2/3 of their funding is from tax money.
Well, and a private institution is not subject to FOIA requests either.
Exactly.
That's convenient.
That's damn convenient.
As I stroke my non-existent beard, like Robbie.
And there's lore of giant humanoids on every continent. Every major civilization has giant theories. Well, not theories, giant stories.
What's like some of the stuff we pointed to with the First Nations tribes? You got First Nations peoples who have never had any geographic interactions with each other, and they have the same damn stories. How does that happen?
well, I mean,
You don't have groupthink when you don't have contact with each other.
make that global, Steve. I mean, when
Well,
you start looking, compare the giants of Kandahar to any of the descriptions from any of the First Nations tribes here in North America. How far apart is Kandahar and Oklahoma, let's say? Pretty good ways away.
Right.
But yeah,
thousands of miles with a lot of water in between.
And no Googles at that time. So how do you get this? How do you get two ancient civilizations describing the same thing? It just like I've said, and DA brought it up again. It takes more effort and more faith to believe that it's a hoax than it does to just accept that these things are real.
Mm-hmm. Well, it all falls back on Occam's razor. You know, take the simplest route to get there. You know,
Dr. 45-120 says, I have a story from Missouri where the Smithsonian received giant bones and quote unquote lost them. That's what happened with Lovelock. And the museum in Lovelock, Nevada still has the receipt where the Smithsonian signed for them.
well, yeah. I mean, you know, it's been my observation over the last 50 years of living that the federal government has the worst fucking record keeping of anybody I know.
That ain't wrong.
Just a time check, gentlemen. We just hit about 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. We will say officially for the record that this show is for entertainment purposes only, as going on. So none of us plan to disappear anytime soon. And to the shrub that's changing shift outside of my house, if you need some coffee, let me know. I'll make a pot.
Yeah. If we disappear, we are not suicidal.
That's a fact. Tomorrow night we'll be doing Campfire Tales. We'll be picking up where we left off from last week. We'll be starting with Chapter 5 of Dark Frontiers First Hunt. I don't know if Steve would be able to join us, but I hope so.
I will try.
We'll break that up and go back to the Redneck Reading Association. And tomorrow
Hooked
night,
phonics work for me.
Tomorrow night, I think what we're going to do is, since we are reading that book, how about we give a couple copies of it away?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so tomorrow night during the reading of Dark Frontiers First Hunt, I will be giving away 2 autographed copies of Dark Frontiers First Hunt. You'll have to be present to win. You'll have to be in the YouTube studio because I'm going to try to get that giveaway program set up again tonight. Try to get that done before tomorrow. And that way it'll do the random giveaways. So we'll just go ahead and reiterate that again. You'll have to be in the YouTube and active in the chat. Which even if all you said is hi, it's going to make sure if you haven't said anything in the last 15 minutes, it probably won't pick you up. And that's a randomizer that I've got linked to the YouTube account. So I'll try to get that set up tonight.
Well, and as a relative outsider, Dark Frontiers is freaking awesome. I am currently reading Cry of the Wendigo because I have been a terrible slacker and have failed in my alpha reader duties. So I'm reading Cry of the Wendigo as a noob just off the Amazon. I pay for that shit. It is absolutely amazing. So hang in there, ladies and gents.
Curtis Murray, any news on the new book? I'm still waiting to hear back from my guy that does my covers. I messaged him a couple times. I may have to just out and out call him. But I've sent him a few messages and he hasn't gotten back to me. He's a pretty busy guy. He works a lot, but he does a good job on the covers. And if I don't hear anything back from him in the next couple of days, then maybe we'll figure something else out. But book's almost done. Once it's actually completed and off to the alphas, then we'll start the editing process, which will only take a few days, depending on how many edits I have to do. But hopefully sometime this week, maybe early next week, we should have that book out, depending on how long it takes to get the cover done.
Hey, you had a neat question from Nathan Finn, DA.
DA and the Lost Legion, Duncan Kane, Declan or Clark. Well, they call him the Widowmaker in that universe too. So I'll kind of let you kind of draw your parallels on who Duncan Kane is in the sci-fi universe.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can find you can draw your own conclusions, but the initials are DC.
And he don't mean Detective Comics.
That's right.
And I've noticed that a few people in your books tend to have an unusually long lifespan.
Might be something interesting behind that. Whew.
Certain bar owner.
That actually gets revealed coming in a book you haven't read yet, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, that actually gets flat out revealed in at the end of
HOI.
Yeah, Heart of Iron.
Really? Okay, so that's the next one on my list.
See,
so
people don't understand. If you read Heart of Iron, there's a lot of questions that get answered in the end of that book.
Or my observation from the beginning, when we're sitting there drinking scotch and talking about Gideon, was that Steve knows some shit. I couldn't put my finger on it because I had no part in the creation of it. I mean, I claim a small piece of Gideon, but I had no part in it. But Steve knows some shit that he ain't revealing, and only the mind of D.A. Roberts knows what's going on there. Maybe Robbie, now that he's read some stuff. But
well, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but the Steve from Steve's Pub and Grub has been kicking around a bit longer than you would think.
That's awesome.
He's one of those long-lived fellows. We'll just put it that way.
Well, the ability that Steve has to, the dumb shit that comes into his bar doesn't move the needle. He has seen some stuff, or he is just completely psychotic. Cry of the
Wendigo right now.
Yeah.
Well, that book's going to explain part of why.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
when you get to the
either he's completely psychotic or he's seen some shit. Because
when you get
the fact
when you get to the end of that book, you'll understand what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, the fact that the dude didn't bat an eye when Hitler's fucking piano shows up in his bar, I'm like, that dude ain't right. Something's going on there.
Well, and the Heart of Iron actually explains a little bit more into that part of it. It's
awesome.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I can't wait.
So if you're up to date, and once you read Heart of Iron, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, yeah.
It's like that. Aha.
Yeah.
What was that from Coming to America? Aha.
Aha. Aha. So if you'd been with us that Saturday night around the fire pit, you would have known all this stuff already.
I know. I suck. I suck.
You would have. You'd know. You'd already been privy to all that stuff, wouldn't you, DA? Because that's where we sat, come up with half of the stuff for the end of Heart of Iron.
Since we're doing the first hunt, Dark Frontiers, I would like to continue for the next few weeks anyway, doing firsts of series to get people interested in the rest of the series. We'll eventually get back and finish Ragnarok, but I would like to do the first book of different series. Maybe after we finish First Hunt, maybe we'll do Heart of Iron.
So it'd be fun.
Awesome. Well, I will do my best to join you, lads.
Other than not being
now that I've had a rare day off.
Eliwa Wolf wants to know what book Cam is doing next. I don't know. I've talked about a few options. I may give Cam a call or a text in the next few days just to see how he's doing. I haven't talked to him in a bit, but I know he's been real busy. So keep my fingers crossed, and I guess we'll see what we see and find out what he's doing. And don't worry, I'll announce it. Oh, I talked to Cam about coming on and doing one of the Redneck Reading Association shows with us, and he said it sounded like a hell of a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
That's awesome. I hope he brings his chickens.
Yeah, bring his chickens. Well, he would, because
always.
He'd be doing it from his office.
It ain't the same without his chickens. I'm just saying.
Or Robbie's dogs.
Or Robbie's dogs. Or my damn canine here.
Ain't heard him tonight.
Yeah. Must not have been something lurking around your window.
He's there. They're just in there asleep.
That could be too.
Yeah. Kenai only made an appearance in the pre-show, and then he realized there was no food here, so he said, "Fuck that," and left.
Yeah, he's like, you ain't got food. I'm leaving.
Yeah, little bastard.
Well, y'all, we're going to start winding things down. Hope you guys will join us tomorrow night on Campfire Tales. We'll be continuing with Dark Frontiers' first hunt. We'll be starting with Chapter 5 and digging back in. There's probably going to be 3 parts in total to Dark Frontiers. But we'll see how many we can get in, how many it takes us. 3 to 4 parts to finish Dark Frontiers, and then, like I said, we'll probably start Heart of Iron. I definitely want to get Cam to Ohio. I'll mention something to Susan, see if she wants to reach out to him. That would be cool to get Cam there. But I want a big shout out to the moderators. You guys did a great job tonight. Thank you guys so much. You guys do a great job every night. We appreciate you guys hanging in there and taking care of everything tonight and keeping things flowing. Have an awesome chat. We got such a great group here on the DAExMachiNation. Really appreciate each and every one of y'all for being part of it. It's great having Steve with us tonight. I hope that can be more of a thing. Missed the hell out of you, brother. But I get it.
You guys too.
I wouldn't.
They offered me some.
Either.
Oh my God! Yeah, they offered me some ridiculous bonus money here at work, and like to the tune of about $100 an hour. And let's face it, I'm a whore. I like my money, and I mean I love you guys, but it ain't the same. And so that's starting to dwindle down, I think. But it's not for lack of interest or lack of love that I haven't been here with y'all.
Well, like I said, we are glad you're here, though. So hopefully in the near future, you'll be able to tune in a little more often.
That's the plan.
White says, we've missed you, Steve, but I would take that money too. LOL. I don't blame him. I would too.
Hey, I'm just saying.
Can't say that I blame him at all.
I mean,
go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no, I was about to say something inappropriate. I thought better of
it. Well, folks, as we start winding things down, again, join us tomorrow night for Campfire Tales. But take a moment to remember the 22 a Day Foundation. 22 a day. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Reach out to your friends and family that are first responders or veterans in any capacity. Let them know you think about them. Let them know you care. And let them know that they shouldn't let the hard days win. Because sometimes they do, around 22 times a day on average. So again, reach out to your friends and family that you care about, the people you love, people that you think could use the word of encouragement. And remember to check on the ones even that you think don't need it, because sometimes they're the ones that need it more than anyone. Sometimes it's the people that you think have things wired together far better than you would expect are the ones that need that encouragement the most, because we all have hard days. And it is our job to make sure that the hard days don't win. And just a reminder that, folks, the world is a better place with you in it. And I hope to see you all stick around and stay part of the family here at DAExMachina. So as we wander down, we're gonna hit the old toast. And Steve, why don't you give us the toast tonight?
I'd be happy to. Let me get myself into a full screen here so I can see the whole thing. Alrighty. And of course, this is from The Parting Glass. Wonderful song and a wonderful sentiment. And, as a person who shares a lot of Mick DNA here, I could appreciate it. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Slanja.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.